Now, Chris Doyle is a commentator on Middle East affairs. He's also the director of the Council for Arab-British Understanding, and he joins us from London. Zohra Kharazami is an associate professor at the University of Tehran, and she's live from there. Thank you both for your time. I'm going to start with you, Chris, first. An alleged attack on Diego Garcia, a US-UK military base. A lot of confusion coming on what the British stance towards Iran actually is. No, we're not going to allow British bases to be used on Iran. No, actually, we are going to allow this. We are part of it. We're not part of it. There is a danger here that the British are being dragged into a conflict with Iran because of this indecision making. And that could come back on Britain, right?
Britain is getting sucked into it, but I don't necessarily think it's because of indecision. I think it is because Britain has these interests in the Gulf that made it always vulnerable if a conflict began. We have, for example, 240,000 British citizens lived in the Emirates prior to the conflict. We have bases in the region and so forth, as well as close allies. And it was very difficult at the beginning to say no to the United States. That comes at a cost, to say, no, you can't use the bases. And then an agreement was worked out that those bases could be used for defensive purposes. But when the Strait of Hormuz is closed, and it clearly has this enormous global impact, once again, impacting all the major global economies, all the economies of the world, in fact, Britain, again, is pushed towards it because, of course, there's a desire to see the strait opened up because there's all talk about fuel shortages and how we might fuel ration in the future. So you can understand the concerns of Downing Street that something has to happen to open the strait. Now, is this going to work? I think is another matter, because I don't see how more bombing is going to necessarily resolve this situation. It's amazing. Every time you hear a Pentagon press briefing, or even President Trump, he always talks about tomorrow Iran is going to be hit even harder, as if you smash the nail that little bit harder with the sledgehammer, it's going to work. And the evidence
Chris, I'm going to stop you
that
there, because you've made a very interesting point that I want to bring to Zohra Kharazami, who is with us in Tehran. It's always been a very difficult relationship between the between Iran and the UK, oftentimes referred to as the little Satan. But if Britain gets into this war, what can Iran really do? Can you strike Diego Garcia? What are the options there for Iran?
Actually, UK had already joined. There are the news in the American media we can follow that the American aircrafts are loaded with the bunker busters in the British bases. So I think that they are not, they don't dare actually to express it, and they are just stepping in and out. Not only the UK, but also other countries that you named, and they're just giving statements about Hormuz. That because they know that the United States, they're throwing them under the bus. Actually, Americans like to save the lives of Americans and push these actually countries, the so-called partners, to actually have their casualties on the front line. And the UK and also the other countries named are showing this reluctance to join the scene in rhetoric. However, many of them are behind the scene, are helping and actually engaged. Italians, France, and the NATO, as Turkey 2 days ago actually mentioned that they're bolstering their defense, for example, systems in Turkey. So
Zohra,
Iran
but
is doing
Zohra, as you already know,
with the world.
As you already know, Zohra, but there's a lot of diplomacy and there's a lot of talking going on within the Gulf states to try and bring this to a head. But every time Iran strikes a Gulf nation, that becomes much more difficult. Chris, I'll come to you in a second, but I just wanted to put that to Zohra. It's going to be difficult for Tehran to re-establish these relations once this is over with the Gulf states, and that's dangerous.
When different cities of Iran are carpet bombed by Israeli and the American aircrafts that are flying and refueling over Saudi Arabia from Dubai and Ras Al Khalifa, for example. They targeted Khark. Wall Street Journal indicated that Saudi Arabia is helping actually very much in refueling the bombers. The CENTCOM published pictures that indicated the HIMARS systems and the GCC is actually working against Iran. So there are lots of objective reasons that Iran cannot actually sit and witness to be bombed and at the same time be actually fooled with this maxim of diplomacy. We were in the middle of negotiations when the Israeli and Americans attacked Iran. You remember that the Omani foreign minister just 24 hours before the attack was talking about a lot of hope and a lot of collaborations from the Iranian side in the negotiations. And before even one day, it was the time that the United States and Israelis attacked Iran. So weapons have only one response, that is weapon. An eye for an eye makes the world blind. I'm sorry, but it's the fact.
I want to go to Chris now. Chris Doyle, you heard Zohra speak there. It's a very common sense of anger, coming from Iran. This is what the Gulf states are doing. They are helping America, so therefore we've got no choice. We have to, we have to attack back. And we're not attacking them. They are our brothers, but we're attacking American interests, British interests in the region. But at some point, the British are going to have to get involved here. The Americans are going to have to get involved here diplomatically, but no one trusts you guys now. Including, and this is the question I want to ask you, including in the Gulf states, because you were supposed to protect, the Americans and the British were supposed to protect, and all you've done, really, is made them more vulnerable.
Well, I think that, one must differentiate between Britain and the United States. And what I would first of all say is that I don't think the Gulf states look for this war. In fact, many of them are actively trying to negotiate a path away from war, to principally Oman, but not only Oman. And Iran has lobbed missiles, drones, even cruise missiles towards neighbouring states. And we've seen over 2,000, for example, being intercepted over the Emirates alone. So I think that, plenty of civilian infrastructure has also been struck in all of that. So I think we have to hold Iran somewhat responsible for that. I do agree, however, that those negotiations that were taking place, brokered by Oman, were shamefully undermined and ripped up. And I think here, this is what Britain had wanted. Britain wanted those negotiations to go forward. In fact, our national security advisor was there in the final rounds, Jonathan Powell, and he's reportedly made it very clear that he believed that the negotiations were going forward and could have worked out. But, of course, yes, we are getting sucked in, but it is a reluctant Britain. This isn't the jingoistic, hawkish Britain, say, of Blair in 2003. It was itching to get to war with Iran. No, this is Prime Minister Starmer being very cautious. I don't think he wants to get any further involved. He'd much rather have negotiations, see the strait opened. He's very worried about the complete lack of strategy. And every time we hear from President Trump, we hear these divergent views, escalating, de-escalating, talking, not talking. What is going on? And that alarms America's traditional allies in the Gulf, in Europe and elsewhere. So I think it is necessary to make that distinction between those parties. Yes, they're not in favour of the Iranian regime. Britain certainly is no friend. But it's also not happy with the way this war broke out and the way it is being conducted.
Interesting point, and I want to go back to Zohra, who's live for us in Tehran. Zohra, one of the big problems here, and let's be absolutely honest about this, when it comes to Iran, is that you don't have any trust left with the negotiation process. Like you say, you're in the middle of the negotiation process, and then US and Israel attacked Iran. Is there a fear developing within Tehran that any potential future negotiations is just Israel and the US buying some time before they attack you again? And therefore, what's the point in negotiations?
Absolutely. You see, from the Iranian perception, actually, is that the commandment of this war is in hands of Israel now. Trump is always giving contradictory and inconsistent comments. He is trapped in confusion, and pushing others and actually dragging their legs into this war is only to have more parties be actually engaged in this strategic defeat of the United States. And UK, Germany, France, Italy, South Korea, Japan, all of them are knowing and absorbing this message. So they are very much reluctant to express explicitly that they are militarily engaged. Iran cannot sit and see the GCC as the praxis of America and the U.S. regime in the region to be a platform of active aggression against it. So the leverage on the Hormuz is a help not to make the global economy down. Actually, Iran is to stimulate these GCCs to be sovereign enough to stop the United States, to stop its active aggression from their territories against Iran.
Right.
It's a very simple fact. If anybody is worrying about the situation, should have this pressure on the United States regime and Israeli regime to stop it.
Now, that's Zohreh Karazami in Tehran. Chris Doyle, also, thank you so much for your thoughts. It's great having both of you on.